This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs the Playbook, and I'm so excited to have a legend in San Diego, Richard Jaffe. He is an author, poet, philanthropist, co-owner of the Phoenix Sun today, and an extraordinary entrepreneur with a huge exit, I know, in San Diego, alone with Safe Skin. But I'm really here to talk about, we share these great values, gratitude being one, but I think more than the great values that we share, it's your perspective of what's important in life. And you wrote this book, Turning Crisis into Success, with your daughter, because at first you were going to write it. And I think she shared with you maybe a different perspective of your own success and brought you to a realization of how you could really help people besides traveling around and speaking all over the world.
Correct. And Dave, thanks for having me on the show.
Anytime. Yeah. So tell me exactly what the idea originally of the book was.
Well, originally I had been speaking to MBA students at Cornell and UCSD on the common themes of happiness and success. And so I said, well, why should I travel? Why don't I just write a book? So when I shared it with my daughter, Charlie, she saw what I started and said, Daddy, let me help you. You need my help. And she's a great writer.
Why did you think that success and happiness were an issue? As far as most people see, oh, the successful people are happy. Those people that aren't successful aren't happy. And I'd love to know your perspective of why you choose to speak at your old school and your local school about how to tie happiness with success.
Well, firstly, the truth is success does not create happiness. Happiness creates success. When you love what you do and who you do it with, you have a much better chance of being successful.
And do you believe you can learn to love what you do? I'm a firm believer, and my wife always says, you're so lucky you've loved everything you've done. I go, who would have loved selling legal research online? I learned to love what I do.
No, I think it's funny. I think the things I used to tell my kids growing up is, if you do not like the way you feel, change the way you think.
Nice.
So I truly believe that you can have spiritual inspiration selling rocks.
Right.
Okay? So the real issue is, it's not what you do, it's who you do with. And in essence, okay, I talk in the book about the pillars for business and the pillars for happiness. And the pillar for happiness is learning to love yourself, becoming your own best friend. And we can get into a little more, but with that belief and with that attitude and learning how to love yourself and then sharing it, everything, okay, has an opportunity to be spiritual, to be successful, and things like that.
And you brought here the advice of your daughter, Charlie, but her perspective of what you should write about was a little bit congruent and separate from what you thought kids wanted to hear.
Well, it was, because originally I would tell, as we went through the process, I would tell her what happened. I started 2 different businesses from scratch, took public, and then sold. The first one I sold to Coca-Cola. Second one we sold to Kimberly-Clark. Very successful. And so as I started writing about it, I was telling this story, and she said, Daddy, I don't want to know what you did. I want to know how you felt. What did you think? We want to learn about the stories of what you did. And so it became very challenging. She really went back 40 years, but the issues were so different. She says, Dad, she says, you're very fortunate. Okay? You lived a privileged life, not financially, but mentally. You've always you think the glass is overflowing.
Yeah.
Okay. You
nice.
Always see you're lucky, you're optimistic. She had some challenges. She almost died in an accident. She went through some PTSD. And so she came from another area. So when we started talking about happiness and what life was about, we came to the same conclusion, but I saw a whole nother side. In fact, after we started going through the whole process, okay, she said, Dad, okay, teach me and my friends, how did you keep your emotional stability through crisis? And that's the real key. And I'm very fortunate. I've been happy a lot. I do a lot of writing poetry. But it's, how did you keep your emotional stability crisis? And in the book, we go story through story to story to see all the different crises. I used to think I had a happy life until I wrote a book.
Right.
But anyway, that's a real key.
That's really interesting. We were discussing, I have 3 daughters, 20, 18, and 15. And so many of their friends are unhappy. They face anxiety and PTSD and all of these things, and it's very difficult for me, especially when the kids go to college for that first year, which is when my kids all have anxiety, because they're very, very much overflowing with optimism. It was really difficult and still is. I don't know how to communicate, because people like you and I, number one, it's natural.
Sure.
But two, even when it becomes conscious, it's just obvious. We'll just change the way you think. Right? Like Wayne Dyer said, there's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Sure. Just look at it and find the light, find the what's good about it, and go with that. And how do you best, or what in the book communicates best of, hey, my life is about lessons, meaning crisis.
Right.
My life is about lessons. The lessons are going to keep on coming till I learn them. Only promise I have are those lessons are going to keep on coming. So how do I deal with the lessons?
Well, I frame it a little differently, but
Please.
The same thing is that I think bad things happen to us because there are lessons to learn.
Okay.
And they keep happening until we learn the lesson. Once we learn that lesson, other bad things happen. So life is a series of learning.
Considered bad. But like I hate when people tell me bad things. Things that
things you choose not. Things you would choose not to happen.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Things you don't expect to happen.
I know when we started writing the book, I wrote about when I just came out of college. We started an Italian ices business in a 1,200 square foot garage. After the first summer, we were out of money. I didn't know anybody. I was literally working 20-hour days, 5 in the morning to 1 in the morning, okay? And I got a little depressed, not clinically.
Yeah.
And so I wrote about a paragraph or two. And Charlie says to me, Dad, stop. I want you to write a couple pages. And I said, sweetheart, the book is about happiness and success, not depression. And she said, Dad, most of my friends are depressed.
Yeah.
So I said, what are you talking about? She said, look, most of them have mountains of college debt. They're afraid to lose their job or they can't pay their rent. And they all fight with their boyfriends or girlfriends. Okay? So teach us. Don't tell me what happened. So how'd you try and get out of it? What'd you think? How'd you do that? How'd you keep your spirit going? Things like that. And so in the book, I tell from one crisis to the next, what I felt, how I thought, and how I got out of it.
Is there a consistent, I believe, in this continuum of the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, this continuum of how we build our muscle of emotional fortitude? Are there any consistent behaviors that you've learned or discussed in the book that can allow someone to say, okay, when a situation occurs that you don't expect, one that you may say is bad or awful or tragic even.
You don't choose.
You don't choose. And I had one of my coaching clients, for example, whose husband committed suicide, and when the son found out, he committed suicide. And I tried to tell her this philosophy. How would you talk someone through that type of crisis of saying, okay, Mr. Half Full, how can I not be depressed when something like that happens?
Right. Well, firstly, you have to have, I would have lots of compassion, and I don't have the skill set of how to counsel them. But I would tell you in general, when I run into that situation, for me, is the first step is accepting the things I can't change. So all the crises I've gone through, I sort of fight back, okay? And I try not to react. I try and respond. I try and step back. And once I'm able to accept the things I can't change, then I focus on, okay, what could I do? And it was interesting. After an interview Charlie and I had about the book, one of the interviewers said to Charlie, what did you learn in writing the book that you never knew? What surprised you? And she said, my friends and I all think asking for help is a weakness. But
I didn't pay him to say this, ladies and gentlemen.
So
this is the best piece of advice you're going to get.
In every single crisis I went through, she said, I see that he asked for help. So he reached out to people he cared about, who knew more than him, who could help him, and they cared enough to help him. So he never really got out of a crisis himself, but he was able to ask people to help. And I now see that as such a strength, not a weakness.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do it yourself to be successful.
It's so funny you say that, because I believe there's two questions we always need to ask. One, how can I be of service? How can I provide you value? That's what I'm always looking to do first. But more importantly, the more difficult one, and the one that has helped me, is learning to say, do you know anyone that can help me? Even broaden the spectrum now that we have such huge networks. I love asking people, hey, I'm looking for a good place to eat. Do you know anyone that can help me? And that question has changed my life. And if you do it often enough, exponentially, there's going to be such a great flow into your life. In that book, you did ask for help. What was the biggest crisis that you faced, and how did you solve it?
So I would say there was many of them. One of them came in the...
Which should make everyone feel so good, because you're so hyper-successful in everything you do, but you handled all these crises.
So in 1990, we had started up a SafeSkin, which is a latex glove company, and we sold the first one to Coca-Cola. We took all that money, put it into SafeSkin, and SafeSkin was going broke. So I got foreclosure notice and personal guarantees being called from Malaysia to me here. My son Brett was 3.5. My daughter Charlie was 6 months. So we tried to get the house out of my name. But the bottom line is, after I accepted the fact it was there, I said, who could help me? And I actually ended up, I'm part of an organization called Young Presidents Organization. YPO. And so I just picked up the international book, opened it to the Malaysia chapter where the factory was, picked the name out, and I called a chairman of one of the banks there and said, do you know anybody at this bank that could help me? And he said, actually, no, but the YPO member from Price Waterhouse, okay, actually used to be the chairman of that bank. Long story short, I called him. He took my call right away. He said, I don't know if I can help you. But when my partner went in that week to meet with them, they gave us an extra 30 days, and we ultimately found another bank to replace them, okay? And 3 years later, we went public, and 10 years later, we sold it. So it was just...
Yeah, for hundreds of millions of dollars, by the way. For those of people who don't know SafeSkin, look it up. Writing the book, you said they asked Charlie what her greatest lesson was. What was the greatest lesson that you learned from writing the book?
Wow, that's really... I learned that my perspective of happiness is different than everybody else's. But it truly took it back. In the book, we talk about 2 pillars, one pillar for business and one pillar for happiness. The pillar for business we worked out together is the lesson: skate to where the puck is going to be. Meaning Wayne Gretzky, when they asked him, a sports writer said, "You're not that big, you don't have a hard slap shot, you don't skate that fast. How are you the best hockey player ever?" And he said, "I don't know. I just skate to where the puck is going to be." And if you take that to business, the customer has all the answers. What you really need to do is go talk to your customer, find out what they need or what they think they need, then extrapolate it into where they're going. Skate to where the puck is going to be. Henry Ford said if he asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. But he extrapolated and put it into a manufacturing line and cars. So the same thing on the business side. You got to look at needs. I believe we always get rewarded in direct proportion to the needs we fill. So find a big need out there and then provide it. That's the business side of it. On the other side, the happiness side, the key to happiness is learning to love ourselves and being our own best friend. And once we get there, that everything else flows from that. And in order to do that, we all come to this world today where we're sitting with warts, with insecurities, with all sorts of problems. So once we accept who we really are and love ourselves for who we are and not try and do or be for other people, not try and be successful for other people or please other people, whether it's our father or somebody else. But once we look inside and realize all of our answers are inside and start pleasing ourselves and become our own best friend, then everything else sort of flows from that. And just verbalizing that and talking with Charlie and bringing it out just really elevated it. Though I might have known that inside, it really helped me to understand that and be aware of that.
Bringing that clarity, one of the issues with success and happiness is money. Even when you were describing what young people go through today, one of the first things that are stressing them out is these huge loans or debt for an education that's antiquated in its institutional formatting now compared to what our economy is doing. And to that end, I'd love to hear your philosophy about how is money related to happiness in your perspective.
Let me start with money, okay? My father gave me a great lesson. We were starting to build the first company, and I worked with him for 25 years. Well, he was originally in the appliance business, but when we started the first company, Guido's, which is the Italian ices, he came and worked full-time. He and my mom did. Okay?
Put your parents to work.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't afford a salesman. I couldn't afford a bookkeeper. So the only 2 people in the world that loved me.
And they were honest and really good at it, I imagine.
Yeah. But, I would always focus on certain things, and he would say, listen. And I played basketball in college for a year and big sports.
This is back when the short white Jewish guys could play basketball, by the way. If anybody, that bitty star.
My son Brett says, how many 3-pointers did you have in college? And I say, well, I didn't have a 3-point line then. He says, you're so old, I didn't have a 3-point line? Yeah. Kids, they don't know that.
That's so
But
good.
anyway, the issue is that building a championship successful business is like building a championship basketball team. If you stand the half court dribble and look at the scoreboard, it never changes. If you look at the basket, put the ball in the basket, score goes up by itself. So in business, okay, putting the ball in the basket is finding a customer need and satisfying it. Okay, that's really the number one thing. Our customers have all of our answers. We don't know anything. People would ask me in business what I thought. I'd say, go ask the customer. I said, pretend the customer has my money. Give them what they want. They'll give us all our money back. So just find out what the customer wants.
That's such a
So
great.
in both of my businesses, I have 5 values I live by, both personally and in business. And they've held me in good stead. And the first one is to exceed customer expectation. And when we exceed customer expectation, we have to define it first. We have to know what the customer wants.
Yeah.
Then give them more than they expect. The second, which is the most difficult, is live up to all commitments. Okay? If you can live up all to your commitments, your customer will take you wherever they go. Mm-hmm. And that's in personal life too. When my daughter or son had a soccer game and I said, be there. And all of a sudden I got a conference call. They didn't want to know. If I committed to be there,
Right.
I had
Promise
to be
keeper.
there. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a commitment. Third is to be the best. What that means is don't have your boss or don't look at history to give yourself goals. Don't compare yourself to history. Compare yourself. What's the best? How do you raise the bar on yourself? How do you be the best you
Your
could possibly
potential.
be? Right.
Yeah.
Fourth is to do the right thing, which is really hard.
When no one's watching.
When no one's watching, okay, we all have a gut instinct that tells us right from wrong. It's not always to our best advantage to do that, but I always implored people at work, do what's right for the company and it'll work out for you.
Yeah, I always say it may not be in the short term, but the truth vibrates the fastest. So
Without
in the long run, if you put faith in your future, do the right thing.
Right. And the fifth
one,
and the most
the golden
important,
rule.
And the most important is treat everybody with care and respect. You don't know if there's mothers dying. You don't know what's going on in their life, but there is no place to raise your voice, to yell, to be. I mean, we're all equals. I don't care if you're a sanitation guy or president of a company, okay? Yeah. We're all equals. So treat everybody with care and respect. And if you live with those 5 things, people will love you. They'll love to be around you. And that itself will breed success by itself.
As we come to a close here, one of the things is you have millennials as kids. I find them to be sensitive. And you talk about a difference of caring and, not raising your voice, but the construct of what I speak about a lot of times is very straightforward. And it's constructive in the nature that I really want to empower people, and especially my own children. And we are loaded with millennials here. My goal is to impact them so they impact others, elevate them so they elevate others. That's truly my life's mission. One of the difficulties that I have is that sometimes I feel as if, although I'm being completely in my intent to be loving and supportive and to elevate, the content in which I have to discuss is of constructive nature, and I feel as if sometimes it diminishes my capacity as a leader. Not even that I'm yelling anymore. Like the old football days, right. Your old basketball days. If these coaches, they could not run for Supreme Court for what they did to us. I guarantee it. How best do you think, after writing the book with Charlie, raising Brett, can you communicate constructive criticism to a millennial so that it doesn't hurt their feelings?
Well, I also have another daughter, Maxie. Don't want to leave her out.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
but I would tell you, I mentor a lot of young entrepreneurs, okay, and I deal with them. And the way I find the best way to motivate them is to ask them questions. So even when I have the answer I know, I've got to ask them questions and bring them along to make it their ideas. They have to learn the thinking process of how to get there. If I give them an answer, when they leave, they don't have it, okay?
Right.
So the real issue is for the young people is how do you ask the right questions? How do they get their own values? How do they understand the process have come to it? I think the biggest thing in decision making really is, I try and say that the real critical thing is establishing what's the criteria. People make decisions, try and make decisions without knowing the criteria. If you define what your criteria is for a decision, the path becomes evident.
Which is value-based.
Which nobody really, not in a way, few people spend the time. And it's not hard. And we're going through now with my son and I, he's looking, to change jobs. I said, what's your criteria?
Right.
Okay. And it's a challenging opportunity. But in young people is they have to understand, they can't have everything today. Okay. It's a process, but find something you love to do. I say, find a passion and follow it. And if you don't have a passion you can follow, find someone else with the same values that has a passion, go work with them. because A, you'll be in a passionate environment, and B, the other passionate people will break off and go find something else, and you can go with them.
Perfect. Last question. Both of us are happiness people, gratitude people. We share so many philosophies. People will think this entire playbook has been a setup going, oh, come on, this can't be real. But you do. You prescribe and live and have executed even far beyond what I'm trying to help others do. You write poetry. I would love to know your favorite inspiring poem for happiness. And if there's a passage you could read or recite or wouldn't mind, you have your book here too, whatever, or just at least the title.
So my favorite poem about happiness is one I wrote in 1979, a long time ago, and it's called Eternal Happiness, and it goes like this. Our lifetimes pass so swiftly in the search for what is real. It often takes another's heart to know what we can feel. And though love's bond with friendship is the strongest ever known, its inner peace, life's eternal happiness, we all must discover on our own. For love that brings us happiness blinds with strength, knowing we are sure. But what if we awake one day and that love remains no more? Our hearts will fill with loneliness and emptiness abound. We will have lost our happiness until another love is found. But a happiness with one's own true self, not an easy bond to make, allows our hearts to pour out love without the need to take. And then, if we be blessed with love, found only wished upon a star, do we first begin our journey in search for who we really are. So if we find everlasting love, the one fate has meant to be, together we will inspire him to set our spirits free. But if it's just another love to teach us how to care, we each will have our own happiness and inner peace still left to share.
Wow. With that said, this is Dave Meltzer trying to give and educate and inspire you with internal happiness with Richard Jaffe, philanthropist, poet, author, and extraordinary entrepreneur, which you would never know because he's so humble, here on the Internal Happiness channel, The Playbook.